Hello and welcome to the new video. If this is your first time here, my name is Hannah and today I want to talk to you about all the books that I have read so far for my horror bingo board. You will notice later on that I'm wearing a different top to what I was actually wearing in my video, and this is because I'm recording this on a different day. I was going to do one long video, but I thought it was going to be a little bit too long and I decided to split it into two. Last time I was talking about all the books that I have read for the easy mode, and today I wanted to talk about all the books that I have read for the hard mode and all my plans that I also have for the remaining prompts for the hard mode. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to check out Sarah's video. That video is linked in the description box below and in the cards as well. And this is the video where she was announcing the challenge last year. So without any further ado, let's skip to all the books that I have read for the hard mode. Okay, so now we have the hard mode, and hard mode prompts are the same, but they come with conditions. So for example, published in 2024, that's obvious, but you also have to have read it in 2024. And for this, I have read The Intruders by something Jensen, I think, I want to say. The Intruders. And I pretty much forgot this book. I think I only rated it 2 or 3 stars. And it was about, I think it was about this man and a woman, and they get this opportunity to move into a house and be caretakers for the house and do like an inventory and stuff like this, and things happen. And also I think there was a crime committed in this house before, so this kind of like flashbacks, we go back and forth. In this book we see what happened in the past, what's happening now, and there's a twist, but the twist at the end, I remember that twist and I didn't like it because I thought it was so unrealistic. I think, but even though we read books and they are unrealistic, I think I like to know that it is possible. Even though it's unrealistic, it is possible. And yeah, I don't know how to explain this. I like my unrealistic stuff to be still realistic, and it wasn't, because it would come with so many different like obstacles. So yeah, I didn't love this book, but I read it. And then next we have The End Times Are Near, and for the hard mode the book has to be something about like the dystopian times, like apocalyptic times, but the book has to have an epilogue. And for this one I have read Moon of the Crusted Snow, and that book was great. Again, as you can imagine, it had snow, isolated settings and weird stuff going on, creepy stuff going on, and I absolutely loved it. Then we have This Is Halloween, and for the hard mode I think Trick or Treating or the Halloween night has to be mentioned, or like jack-o'-lantern or something that actually happens on Halloween has to be mentioned in a book. And for this I have read All the Devils by Caitlin Wilson. It was kind of like a dark academia book, but it had like horror elements. I would say it was like a young adult fantasy horror, let's say, or paranormal horror. And it actually did mention Halloween and trick-or-treating and jack-o'-lanterns, so I used that for this. It was forgettable. Then we have a blood on the cover, and for the hard mode you have to have blood, but it has to be a lot of blood on the cover. And for this I have read Tender is the Flesh, and this book, this is happening again in like dystopian times. Animals get this some sort of a virus, and this kind of causes the meat not to be edible for humans. And so what happens, someone has an idea to breed humans for meat, and yeah, so it's a very good book. I've listened to this as an audiobook, and I actually have a copy of this to read physically because I want to reread it. And I think like there is so much to this book that I think doesn't matter how many times you read it, you will always find something interesting. And yeah, there's basically levels to this book, okay? I actually really liked it. Then we have Honoring the Classics, and for this I have read War of the Worlds by H.G. Wells, and oh my gosh, I didn't expect this to be happening in my neighborhood. I think this book was released in 1850, and forget the movie that you've seen with Tom Cruise, okay? This is like modern times. The book was actually happening in the 19th century in my neighborhood, in the area where I live, in North London. And it was, for me, it was so fun to read about these places because this is where I live, man. And it wasn't scary, but I can imagine how scary this book was for people, that actually lived in those times and read this book when it was published. So yeah, that's a really good one. I actually recommend. It's not a long read, but I actually highly recommend this to people to read it. Then we have a translated work, and for hard mode, the book had to have a translator's note at the end. And for this, I have read Walking Practice, and it was about this alien that crashed on Earth and had to survive and had to feed. It was weird. It was interesting. There was a lot of sex in that book as well. Then we have Cover Pick, and for hard mode, you mustn't know what the book is about. Just basically pick the book by the cover. And I sometimes hear people mentioning books, and then I add them to my wish list and then I get them, but then I rarely read the synopsis unless I really get interested. But sometimes I read the synopsis and I forget it. It's literally in and out of my brain. And for this one, for this book, for the cover pick, I picked The Botanical Daughter because I absolutely loved the cover design, loved it. And it was also happening in England in like the 19th century. People are exploring and learning about sciences and people and everything that's happening in the world. And I feel like this was a very interesting time for people, and not having access to the technology that we have now, and all the experiments that they were doing and everything. Oh yeah, it was cool. And the book was okay. The book was okay. It was about these two guys that lived in a greenhouse, and they created a daughter. And then we have, title has a spooky word, and for the hard mode it has to have 2 spooky words. And for this I have read The Spirit Bears Its Teeth by Andrew Joseph White, and this is about a Silas who is in a body of a girl but wants to be a man. Also, the older brother is a surgeon, and Silas wants to be a surgeon as well. And the other thing that is important to mention in here is this is the word where certain people have violet eyes, and people with violet eyes can get through the veil, and the veil is something that separates the word of the living people from the word of the spirits. And Silas not only is in the body of the girl, also has violet eyes. And during one of the gatherings, Silas is dressed as a boy, and something happens. Silas gives first aid, and that's when it comes out that Silas is actually a girl. So Silas is being sent to this boarding school for naughty girls to straighten them up. And while being in that school, Silas discovers there's a lot happening in the school. There's a lot of girls that's gone missing and whatnot. So yeah, it was that kind of vibe, paranormal with a little bit of kind of like magic as well, I would say. It's hard to say because I feel like there was so much to this book that it's really difficult to pinpoint one thing that was the most important. I think the most important thing in this book was the fact that it's a 19th century, and if you're born a woman, you have nothing to say. If you're a transgender, you are a creep and a weirdo, and it's just it's set in those times that it was really hard for people that were different. But yeah, it was a good book. Then Dead Man Walking. This, for the hard mode, it has to be part of the series, and for this I have read Voices in the Snow by Darcy Coates, and it is a first book in a series called The Black Winter. And again, winter setting, isolated settings. We have creatures, we have all the good stuff. That was actually a really good book. It was a book that got me hooked. I was literally reading this on my Kindle, and like I never bring my Kindle home only to charge it. This is something that I just read at work on my breaks, and when I was reading that book, I was actually bringing my Kindle home and reading on my Kindle. It was a good book. Then we have genre blending, and for this I have read The Scotch Between Stars, and it was kind of like it was a novella, and it was something, it was happening on the spaceship, and they had some banging in the walls and stuff, and you know, it kind of like, it had alien vibes, and it was fun to read. Like it was forgettable because I now forgot most of the stuff that happened in that book, but I know I had a good time reading it. It was a short one. It was a shorty, but it was a goodie. And then a 5-star read that for hard mode, it has to be a prediction. And for this, I have read T. Kingfisher's The Twisted Ones, and I have predicted a 5-star for this one because it is a T. Kingfisher, and I had a lot of 5 stars from T. Kingfisher. And this was a kind of like a folk horror, I want to say. This woman moves into her late auntie's house to tidy up and kind of get through things. Turns out she's a hoarder, so she takes it takes a lot of time to clean up this house, and while she's cleaning up the house and sorting things out, she discovers her step uncle's diary, and she reads this diary, and then we kind of like move from here, you know, strange noises at night, and she sees strange things, and yeah, it was good. I liked it. I loved it. Then we have cryptids, so it has to have a creature. For hard mode, it's the creature that you've never heard of before. And for this, I have read The Only Good Indians by Stephen Graham Jones. I actually don't think I am a fan of Stephen Graham Jones. This book didn't really amazes me so much. It was okay. It was one of those. It was about, there's a group of men that killed an elk, and then this elk come to seek revenge. Then we have title has a number, and for the hard mode, it has to have 2 or more numbers. And for this, I have read Nosferatu by Joe Hill, and I didn't know Joe Hill was Stephen King's son. Okay, let me start from this. And when I started reading this book, I was like, this literally reads like King, but less boring and less dragged down. And then, you know, after doing my research, turns out Joe Hill is Stephen King's son. And I was like, oh, what a shock. I'm not even surprised after reading this book. But yeah, it was good. It was about this girl that had this power kind of to transport herself anywhere that she had to be. So for example, if her mom lost a bracelet, and then the girl jumped on her bike and this bridge appeared for her, and once she crossed the bridge, she would go to the place where that bracelet was. So yeah, she has that power. There's some other people that have very similar powers as well, and one of them is a vampire who drives this old Rolls Royce, and the registration plate on that Rolls Royce is Nosferatu, and he kidnaps children and takes them to the Christmas land. And this girl, I can't remember her name, but she is the only child that ever escaped him. And years later, when she has her own child, Nosferatu is back and wants to take revenge and kidnaps her kid as well. So it was a really good book. I actually really enjoyed it, and yeah, I will be reading more from Joe Hill after I've read all the other crap that I have on my shelves. Then we have Satanic Panic, and for this I have read Rachel Harrison's Black Sheep. For the hard mode, this has to have some sort of an occult, so like pentagrams or rituals and stuff like this. And this book was about this girl, which name I can't remember. I'm so bad with names. And she was part of a satanic family. She escaped them. She didn't want to live with them anymore. She didn't want to do this whole occult thing. And years later, her friend or her cousin gets married, and she gets an invitation to a wedding, and she decides to turn up. and things go wrong basically, and she finds out who her daddy is. Book club pick, like I said, Hidden Pictures by Jason Rekulak. It was for both easy and hard mode. Then we have Pink Horror, and for the hard mode, this has to be a debut for the writer. So for this, I read Monica Kim's The Eyes Are the Best Part, and oh my gosh, that was a good book. I recommend it. You should read it. And it was weird, it was unhinged, and it was creepy, and yeah, it just got better and better as you read it. The later in the story, the better it got. Then we have a multiple point of view, and for this one I have read Johnny Compton, I want to say, The Spite House, and it's about this family. There's a dad and two daughters, and they are on the run from something, but we don't know from what. And they kind of live motel to motel. Dad gets like temporary jobs and stuff, and one day he finds this ad in a paper that this old rich woman is looking for someone to move into this haunted house, and they will get paid a lot of money. All they have to do is document everything that's going on in the house. So after the discussion with the older daughter, they decide that he will apply for this job, and he gets it. So they move into this house, weird creepy things start to happen, and I have read so many haunted house stories, and not a lot of them move me anymore, and not a lot of like the possession stories, they kind of have this effect on me anymore. But I actually really like this, the Spite House. I think I rated it 5 stars. It was one of my favorite books of last year, and because of that atmosphere and those creepy vibes, and like the hauntings were described really well as well. And I think the fact that with kids involved, I think that helps with the story, at least for me. Then we have short story collection, and for the hard mode it has to have more than 13 stories, and for this I have read Tender is the Flesh, and even if you ask me, I would not be able to tell you anything about this apart from the fact that it was 18 short stories, and I am not a fan of short stories, and each one was about something else from a different author. Have I enjoyed it? I probably not, because I literally can't remember anything. There was one that I remember, but I can't remember the title, and it was, I think it was happening in like Thailand or something. This woman was followed by this ghost everywhere she went, and the ghost was seeking revenge or something like this. That was the only one of them that kind of had any effect on me. The next one, TBR Vet, I have read Mice by Gordon Reese for this, and I had this book so long on my shelves. I wouldn't even be able to tell you how long, but it must be 6 years plus for sure. And I don't know why I wasn't reaching for this book, because that book was actually so good. I think I rated it 5 stars. So I highly recommend it. It's about this mom and daughter that they're running away from stuff. Daughter has been bullied, and also she's been bullied quite badly at school, and the mother is going through the divorce, and they move out to this cottage in the sticks, and something happens that changes their lives forever. It's a really good book. It's a really good book. You don't I didn't expect that this shit will be happening, so I really loved it. And then the last but not least, we have creepy crawlies, and for the hard mode we have to have creepy crawlies on the cover. And for this I have read Infested, and that book, oh my gosh, the descriptions, it was about this family that moved from, I think, San Diego to New York, and the father is supposed to be a caretaker of this building, and they move into this building, and this building is haunted, and this boy, his son, is seeing cockroaches everywhere, and the descriptions in this book for these cockroaches are like OMG, absolutely horrible. Like, I fucking hate cockroaches, worms, any creepy crawlies, spiders, rats, anything like this. I hate it. So a horror like this literally gives me creeps. I can't. So I think it was a 5-star read for me as well. And when you think of it, this is a middle grade horror. So yeah, and I'm a 44-year-old woman, and it did that to me. It must be good. Okay, so that's my bingo boards. As you can see, they pretty well filled out. So now I only have few spaces left on each board, and let me just kind of go through the books that I plan to read for them. Things may change because as I'm reading books, maybe certain topics will come to light, and then I will be able to use these books for my horror bingo board. But for now, for the hard mode, 1, 2, 3, 4. For the hard mode, I only need 5 books. So for Woods Wilderness, I have Wilder Girls by Rory Power. I don't know what that book is about. I have no idea. Then we have Reaper Read, and for this I have Dirty Job. And I think in Reaper Read, in the hard mode, there actually has to be death personified. And I think Dirty Job is one of those books that actually fits that prompt. Then we have again BIPOC author, and for this I have The Reformatory by Tenerife Jew. Then, as seen on the big screen, I have The Ruins by Scott Smith, and for this hard mode, you mustn't have seen the movie before, and I haven't. And then, the last but not least, I have Out of My Comfort Zone. Out of My Comfort Zone, I have Stephen Graham Jones. I Was a Teenage Slasher. Out of your comfort zone for hard mode, it has to be an author you've read from before, but something that you don't usually read. So I don't really read slashers, and I don't watch slashers. They don't scare me, and they just gross me out. I'm not a fan of slashers, so I will be hopefully reading this one for my Out of Your Comfort Zone. I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like it if you did, and let me know in the comments if you are also taking part in Sarah's Horror Bingo Challenge. And in the meantime, check out this video where I was talking about all the books I have read for the easy mode. For now, I thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!